small but intense.
Yes. And
Right. Are you ready?
ready? Yeah, you like.
Okay. Well, guess what we're going to talk about? And what is talking anyway? Isn't that energy vibrating through this pattern, these patterns, which have a voice box in, and the sound, vibration forms, it's going through that voice box, forms sounds and words. But the word's not the real. It's a label we put on those sounds and put the meaning into them. So the word's not it. What we're looking for, and never will be it. Word is concept, thought and idea. And so what's spoken here is just comes out in words. And it can only, as it's not the real, it's not the thing, it can only be a pointer towards what we're pointing to. And what it's pointing to is the absolute. What all the traditions will tell you, most of them use the term God, set it up, that word, as something greater and above everything else. But the word, as I say, is not the thing, it only points. And that's all that God is a word, pointing to the same thing, the absolute, the totality, which it is no thing, but through which that no thing, everything, patterns, shapes and forms, and expresses. So the no thing is the everything, and the everything is the no thing. And that's where we could see all this manifestation, including you and me and everything else, are all things, and appearing in no thing. So can something really come from no thing? It can't really. So all these patterns, shapes and forms, all these things are really that no thing. But we've taken them to be separate and divided. We've divided the one essence into the many. And in that division, that's where all our problems come from. Because now we're taking on the idea we are separate entities, we are individuals, we are persons. And that capacity of reasoning develops, and that idea of separation, not realising what we are and taking ourselves to be this pattern, shapes and forms we call the body, mind, entity, to be real, it's the cause of all our psychological suffering, all our fears, all our anxieties, all our stresses, and everything that appears in this manifestation we take to be other than what it is. And that's all the problems that come about. But in its absoluteness, nothing, no thing, and it's all that variety and diversity of things that are appearing, and it's no thing. There's nothing to divide them, nothing to separate them. What can be said about them? Nothing whatsoever. So it wouldn't be much of a life if that was it. So it's taken on this capacity of reasoning and seemingly divides things up, puts labels on them, puts meaning into them, and now the one has seemingly become the many. And the many, in all that division, there's a lot of isolation, a lot of separation. And isn't that the cause of all our problem? Because subtly you feel isolated, you feel separate, you have tastes of the wholeness and the completeness, but then we put the terms on it, the words we've learned, which are dividing. Have a look at the way the words function. It's either good, bad, pleasant, painful, happy, sad, loving, hating, positive, negative. Watch your mind, see how it functions, and seeing all these labels we put upon it are in the opposites. Now when it's in opposite and we think we're separated from the one, we don't want the other and try and get rid of it, not realising that though it's appearing as the opposites, it's still the one essence. And just like I call a one-ended stick or a one-sided coin, there's no one-sided coin, there's no one-ended stick. There's going to be the two ends to it, and they're not separate and they never will be. But when we're separating all these concepts, it's good, and then it becomes bad, and we're seemingly unhappy, and we want to become happy again. So we think we've got to get rid of the unhappiness, and we fight against one against the other. We don't want this. We want to alter it, modify and correct it and change it, and we want the other. Not realising, if you look into nature and see for yourself, that it's constantly divided, it's constantly separating, day and night, winter and summer, but can you divide them? Day is just the earth rolling around the sun, and when the portion we're on now is facing to the sun, well, it's light. And we call that light the light of day. When it continues to roll around as it's transient constantly, well, goes around and it's facing away from the sun, there'll be darkness, which we call night. But is it two separate things? Take the tide. The tide takes 4 hours to come in. It's in for 4 hours, then it goes out for 4 hours. And we think it's high tide or low tide, but what is it? Basically, it's still only water. The water. And we put these two labels on it. You can do that with all the opposites and see actually they are not in opposition. If there wasn't the opposite, what could you say anything about it? They call this what we look at non-duality, Advaita, non-duality. And they point out there is absolutely no duality in non-duality. Though it appears, when you look at all the objects and things, it appears to be dualistic. It appears to be more than one. But it's not. It's only the one without the second. And so, in that sense of separation and division, what do? We try to make it whole or complete. We try to alter it, modify it, correct it, make it so. But we don't need to, because it's naturally so. It'll come about if left to as itself. Like your breath. Your breath goes out, you're out of air. You've got to try to make the breath come in, you don't. It happens by itself. Heart beating, heart's expanding and contracting. You've got to try and make it. And if it gets a heart attack and it stops, what good is it to you then? It's no good at all, because the body, it's the end of the body. The life goes out of the body. But it's all that one essence, appearing as many. And that's what non-duality is. And we think we need to search for it, seek it, and become something. We've got to go from this idea of a separate entity, an individual, a person, into becoming whole, complete. But that word becoming, it's not being. It's like, can being become anything? It can't really. So though we believe it is becoming something, it's still only the one being. And that's what we need to grasp. It's always and only and ever the one essence that's appearing, patterning, shaping, forming, expressing as everything. And when you understand that simple fact, it makes it a lot easier. What are we going to do? Are we going to give up all this concern for this, that and the other, the worry, the unhappiness and the belief? And see, because all the worry and unhappiness and belief, they're part of that division again. But if it's one and only the one, nothing can be added to it, nothing can be taken away to it. And though it seemingly disappears and goes away, it'll come back again. Have a look at your thoughts, for instance. You can hang on to a thought for years. Something troubles you and you believe you hang on to it. But isn't thought changing constantly unless you fixate on it? When we fixate on it and keep it there, we've divided ourselves off and suffer accordingly. But if you know that it's no matter, you don't have to keep it there. If you can let it be as it is, it will disappear. The opposite will come about. It will change. The good will move around to being the bad. And happiness and sadness will move around to being the one again. Constantly vibrating, and the seeming opposites will be labelled, put the label, which is the stopper, and the boundary on it, and taken the label to be the real. What if you take the stoppers off? Pause the thought. Ask yourself what's wrong with right now if you don't think about it. Well, if it does vibrate, it's going to move back again. Good and bad, pleasant and painful, north and south, high and low. Are they separate? Realise they're two ends of the one stick, two sides of the one coin. They're not separate at all. What are you going to do? Take the boundaries of words off and leave everything as it is. But it will be free to change. And it'll go one end to the other. Like North Pole and South Pole. There seem to be two ends of this planet Earth. But are they really divided? Just go to the South Pole and move north, you'll come north again. Has there been a separation anywhere in between? You come to the centre, they call it the equator, where it's equal. And so that equality, it spreads out either way, like the thoughts. The thought is equal, we expand it to one end and lose sight of the other end, or go to the other end and lose sight of the top. But bring it back to where it's equal. And I might understand then, like Shakespeare says, there's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And what is thinking? Isn't thinking vibration, a movement, an activity? If you're thinking right now, unless you hang on to it and fixate on it and keep it static, and keeping it static, you're going to be in trouble. Because it'll bring up, even then it'll move and bring up all the sadness, the unhappiness, the depression, guilt and shame like that. And when it goes to the other end, it'll be joyous, happiness, completeness. So it's nothing, as Shakespeare said, either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. So thinking, if it's understood and see what is actually happening, it will not be a problem. And everything is left as it is, and it's constantly vibrating and moving, just as it is. And as it is, the change will come about. It is this right in this moment. But this moment is not transient, is not fixated, it's transient. It's going to change. And the isness will express as difference. But it's just we're losing sight of one end and fixating on it. And putting all the energy of belief, the belief we put into these words or concepts, which we've learned from our school society, putting all the energy into belief into one end. And it gets overwhelming. And we get on the other end, it gets pleasurable. Well, the pleasures don't last either, do they? They can become overwhelming too. So it's constantly vibrating. And we constantly fixate on it. But the great perfection, as I tell you in Buddhism, is non-conceptual awareness. The division is in concepts, ideas, thoughts. That's how we're dividing things. What if you're not dividing it? Won't it be just as it is? and though it will continue to change, are you going to stand away from it and separate yourself? Or wouldn't you go with the flow, knowing if you leave it as it is, it'll change back again? It can only vibrate into the opposites, and the opposites are the boundaries or the word we put on it. Without the word, who's going to notice, or who's going to describe or take delivery of the vibration? It's only taken delivery of because it's believed it's happening to me. I'm feeling all this, or I'm suffering all this. I like it, or I don't like it. We've got this conceptual image which we've set up to be something separate and apart. But it's not. You, like everything else, and I, we are the absolute. We are the life itself. And what we call this manifestation, the way it's expression, is life. Or we call it God, we call it higher power, we put all sorts of labels on it. But it's only life. And it's that life that's expressing through that pattern, shape and form which you call the body-mind. Take the life out of that body, and what is it? What good is it to you without the life? It's a corpse. But before it rots and breaks down, all the things that are in it right now are then as before it breaks down. The eyes, the ears, the heart, the lung, the kidneys, all the organs, the brain. But there's no power going through it anymore. No life. And so all these organs are no good. But what comes up then is that microbes or germs or things like that that'll break it down. Take it back into its, completely back into its emptiness again by rotting it, breaking it down, or giving life to maggots and worms and germs and bacteria that'll break it down. So life continues in its different shapes and forms. But it won't be that human shape and form again. And that human shape and form, that particular human shape and form won't reincarnate because it's finished with. Just like you'll never get the same drop of water out of the ocean again because it's merged with all the other drops. It's fresh and new. So the next life that comes up will be fresh and new. A unique pattern, shape and form and expression. Always and ever unique. And expressing. And you are that. I am that. When the birth comes around and you understand how that happens, through the father and the mother, the seeming life essence in that father, through the essence of the food he eats, and the prana, the air he's breathing, enables the sperm to form in that pattern. Another microscopic particle comes up, and that sperm is suffused with intelligence. It knows what to do. The life, the power is in that sperm, the same as it's in the body. And the same in the mother, through the egg or the ovum, formed again through the food and the breath and the essence, and which forms the egg. And that ovum is suffused with the life essence. And the sperm swims to the ovum, proving that it's full of the life essence, the power is in those two. And when those two come together, what happens? The little embryo doubles and redoubles, and that grows and forms the life essence. And that is what you are today. You mightn't realise it. But on the way up, when the capacity of reasoning developed, we learnt words, we took on the idea that we are separate, we are this person, we are this individual, separated ourselves, and that's where all our problems started. Our problems will started with that, but we wouldn't have been able to experience or express this manifestation if it didn't happen that way. But in the idea we've been separate, an individual, it causes a lot of fear and anxiety and stress and guilt. But if you know, even though it's expressing dualistically, that you are the one essence, and you're not taking on the conceptual image and recognising your true nature, it's going to be a lot different. Going to be less concerned with it, less misery and unhappiness, less fear, less trying to take something from the other, because if there's no entity in you, there's no in the other, no one superior to you, no one inferior to you. It's all an equilibrium. And you are that. See how your life would be then. I find it's much different coming from that point of view. And others that have written about it will tell you it's much different also. And you might find the same thing when you recognise it, or even get a taste of it for a start of. And keep getting the taste until you realise it or recognise it in its fullness, that you are already that. And there's people here who have got the taste of it, no. And you all wouldn't be here if you hadn't started to look a bit further into things, because you've realised it's a bit more than what we take it to be. So it needs to be recognised, recognised. As they call it, a cognising emptiness. We think we are the cognising of the emptiness, but we are not, or we need to cognise the emptiness. We're not. The emptiness itself has that capacity. Just the emptiness has forming everything. Its emptiness is form, as the Buddha told you, it's the emptiness is forming all these things. That's the cognising, the patterning, and the form can be nothing other than the emptiness. So they're still the one things. So if you are, or recognise that you are that cognising emptiness, you're not the person that you think needs to cognise and know the emptiness. You don't, that's the problem. You've got to go back and recognise and realise that life essence, if it goes out of your body, leaves a corpse there, and that corpse can't do anything without that life essence. And it's the life essence that's patterning, shaping, forming all this manifestation. What are you going to do? What must you realise? Well, you must realise that I am that life. That is what I am. I am alive. So I must be the life. That's what the Christ told you. I am the way. I am the truth. I am the life. I and the Father, I am that essence are the same. But the Father is greater. The Absolute is greater than the seeming separate pattern. But they're both the one thing. The Father and Son are one and the same thing. So this thing you like to call God and think you're separate from it, and you are one and the same thing. But the Father, the life essence, if it's not confined to this pattern, shape and form and believed to be separate, the Father, life essence, it's functioning, manifesting, patterning, shaping this manifestation, this universe, this cosmos, all quite naturally and effortlessly. You realise it's much greater than this seemingly pattern, shape and form, but they're both the same essence, both of the same essence. But in the need, the recognition, the recognising that, because this believed in separation is causing all sorts of dramas, traumas, fear, anxiety, stress, guilt, shame and remorse, it's stopping the joyousness, the sense of well-being, the loving to be expressing in its naturalness, and causing all this conceptual. It doesn't need to be that way. Know the truth, as they tell you, and the truth will set you free. When they give you that statement, they're pointing to something that can be recognised, that is different from the beliefs we're wallowing in. Know the truth. Investigate and see. It's the truth that will set you free. And what's the truth? It's the absence of the false. That's all it is. So what happens to that? And what needs to happen to that? To recognise the false as false. And if it's recognised, to recognise the false as false, what must you be left with? You must be left with truth, because truth is all there is and only what is. But it's seemingly obscured with the beliefs. And that word belief, have a look. Need to question the words, because you recognise that the word's not real in a lot of cases. You've seen that the word's not real. Well, in the word belief, maybe they're not real either. Look at the dictionary definition and see. And you'll see the definition of belief is an unquestioned acceptance. Accepting something without questioning, taking it on board, which we take so much on board from what we picked up from our parents, our school, society, our nation and everybody else, without investigating. We take it for granted and suffer accordingly. An unquestioned acceptance of something in the absence of reason. Now that capacity of reasoning is developed in you before you learnt any words, or you wouldn't have understood any of the words. So that capacity of reasoning is there. But we don't question it, look at it. An unquestioned acceptance of something in the absence of reason, acceptance of an alleged fact. We hear all these facts and going on in our everyday life. Oh yeah, that sounds right, we'll leave it as that. And this is so and so. And we accept it without questioning it and fall into the trap. And that acceptance, we beat ourselves up with the word. An acceptance of an alleged fact without positive knowledge or proof. So to look into it and question it and see for yourself. Because they tell you that the false will not stand up to investigation. It can't. Because what is false is not true. And if you see, investigate and see, test it out whether it's true or not, and look into it deeply and see that it's not true, you must be left with the truth, and if you're left with the truth, you know that truth. And then you're not working against the things, you're not trying to acquire something, if you recognise that the truth is already there, and in that knowing of the truth, you're set free from all these beliefs. Well, when the clouds clear from the sun in the sky, what's in the sky then? Isn't there more clarity? Much clearer? No blockage of clouds? And in that clarity, isn't the sun shining with much more effectiveness, more warmth, more heat? Get rid of a lot of these thoughts and concepts that we've had that you realise you're beating yourself up with because it's fear, it's anxiety, it's stress, it's guilt, it's shame, remorse, it's depression. That's all these thoughts form, and you know that in the labels we put on them and question them. And they're like the clouds. And if the clouds of thought dissolve, what's going to be there? And there's going to be more silence, more clarity, more silence, more clarity, less words, less thoughts, less fear. So if there's less fear, what must be there? There must be more affection, more love, more warmth, more vibrancy, more actuality into the real. And does anything need to be done with it? It's just in the recognition. Just when it's seen. It's recognised, it must, in the recognising that the emptiness is form. It's the emptiness is forming all this manifestation, and the form can be nothing other than the emptiness. And you recognise that the thoughts are forms, pattern shapes and forms, and recognise that the thoughts are empty too. Also, how many thoughts are stretching in your head right now? Is there any thought really fixated there? And you realise it's not. Thoughts come and thoughts go. So when I call it be utterly awake with unfixated awareness, where you're not fixating on this awareness or any thought, you're letting it flow. And in letting it flow, it doesn't mean to say that thoughts won't arise, they will. But you're not fixating on them, you're not sticking with them. You know they're going to pass anyway, now whether they're good or whether they're bad. So you'll open up to them and take them in more and let them do their job, what they're there. And you'll find life becomes a much more effortless, much more easier. Nothing could be easier than life that's slowly free. So that's what we point out to and ask you to look and see for yourself. And you've all been here many times before and you've all got a good taste of it. So there's no reason why you shouldn't add to it, because there are people listening in that might want to hear it, or might hear something that they've never heard in the way you're expressing it before and resonate with it. And as that resonation will give them more clarity, and so that's how this can be passed on. Where in the old days, one person in the village might know it, could only pass it on to a few, and some of them would garble it and put all the erroneous concepts on it before they understood it, and that's how a lot of the great traditions have got. There's truths within them if you look into them, but they're garbled in a lot of ways by what's been added onto them erroneously. So know the truth, and your truth will set you free, so away you go.
Thank you, Bob.
just move it here, and hello everyone who is with us online. We have a couple of comments made by people who are with us, a couple of good morning messages, and there is a comment from Byron saying that the person of desires and fears is born out of unmet needs, as we born out of unmet needs. Need is highlighted as like capital letters. We as people are not doing anything erroneously. Only our needs have not been met. Talking nicely and explaining gently will meet some needs in some people. Some needs. If it was to meet all needs, the person would wake up and disappear. Well, that's a theory.
Yeah. You see the difference between needs and wants, and it might work out a lot better. We want things which, are not necessarily things. But if there's something you need, we'll find you usually get what you need if you search for it enough,
Well, the truth is, you have the need for the air. Do you have it right now? You do. The water, the fire. The need is something without which you can't function. So if you stop thinking and calling desires needs, you may find out that without the thought, the needs are being met because you are here. But I know that, Byron probably read, and I did read a lot of psychological books myself, and this is an elegant theory that is actually probably soothing for some sort of traumatized or victimized people, and is nothing wrong. It's just that non-duality is a little bit having a little bit of a different take on a different angle, and bringing up more language and more theories and more ideas into explaining the current situation actually is counterproductive, because the moment you stop thinking, there is no person. You don't need to meet any needs to realize that the person is only there when you're thinking and creating needs and wants and desires and all that stuff. When the identification with that turmoil goes on, then the person exists. The moment you look beyond without meeting needs. I mean, there is an idea that, okay, you need the shelter, you need food. So if you don't have the shelter or the food, you can't see through the illusion. That's nonsense. There were people in jailhouses and in Auschwitz who had no psychological of the Maslow pyramid needs met there, and would still be able to see through the narrative. So it's a nice theory, and it's a nice thing to soothe, as you say, to actually gently explain people that, oh yes, I actually had a friend who is a therapist, and she actually see two type of people. You're either victim or you're psychopath or narcissist. You're either the scapegoat or you perpetuator. She actually loved me for a couple of years because she saw me as a scapegoat. The moment I refused the identity of the victim, I ran straight out to the other side of the scale. And she's helping people. There are people who come with that sort of identity, and she's giving them soothing. Oh yes, the whole world is full of psychopaths. You okay? You just scapegoat. But look, life looks after that too, because it will take people who are ready for seeing through somewhere else, and things resolves like this. So yes, gentle explanation may soothe, but will that really answer the primordial question of what am I? What am I right now? What am I constructing myself to be? Someone who is needy and doesn't have needs met, and when I only get my iPhone or I get my shelter and my food and my coat or whatever, then I will disappear? Well, it may be simpler than that. It's just may. But thank you for pointing out that yes, gentle talking, nicely explaining, hugging people, soothing them does relieve some of the suffering. And yes, definitely, if someone is a strong victim personality, you can't challenge that because well, you likely just to miss the mark. Just see where life takes you. There is another one from Tanya. I just wanted to say how perfect the pointers in Siler Bob Adamson sharing and pointing group have been the last few days. On Friday there was an experiential recognizing of my true nature, and somehow any insights coming up the day before are partly what the posts in the group are about. So much gratitude and love flowing, overflowing. Thank you so much, Bobcat, and all lovely expressions that have expressed clear and sharp pointers to what it is as it is. Thank you, Tanya. I'll just clarify. Caroline is watching with us. I saw she started a group. Caroline Pixie started a group of Siler Bob. This is a Facebook group. So if anyone is on Facebook and would like to join the closed group, you just send a request. We don't reject anyone. It's just, I have tons of really sweet and cute pictures of Bob and put snippets of daily reminders, and yeah, obviously Tanya likes it. I think a few other people like it too, so there's a possibility there. And there is another comment from Joe, and he says, belief and will tantamount to mind's sake. Belief and will tantamount to mind's sake. Fulfilled by being. No, I think it's a poetry, because that word shows up twice in the same way. Belief and will tantamount to mind's sake, fulfilled by being, and growing us within, not without the thing to be had. So there is a rhyme here as well. Had in its sensitivity to Ohm over you, the melody of the cosmos, it key, there art. There you are. Belief is what is. Yeah, so that's some sort of a artistic expression, I think. And thank you, Joe. And Julia says that's to you. She could listen to you all day. British Julia could listen to you all day. Yeah. And Kiran says good morning. And American Julia says, without a belief in thought, can you find the difference between a need and a want? That, I think, is for you question, because you said there is a need and there is a want. And Julia is asking if without the thinking can you find the difference between belief and want? And without thinking, can you find the difference between elephant and a cloud?
No, that's the point.
No.
If you need, you don't have to necessarily have to think about it, do you?
No.
As you say, you're breathing before, you know. You don't say you need air every breath.
No.
You don't have to think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is, Richard says, there are two types of people in the world. Those that say there are two types of people and the rest. Good one. Yeah. World is full of colors. I'm sincerely sorry for people who see it only black and white. But that's also life, and that's also perfection. In addition to Facebook, Julia says, you can speak with Bob on Zoom 3 times per week, not including today. Details on the website, silerbobadamson.com. That's correct. You can also speak with Bob one-on-one, not just on Zoom, on Skype. And yeah, that's also his time, his generosity. He doesn't charge for the sessions, and he's there for everyone. And not a question for Bob, British Julia was saying. And No, that was American Julia saying, and British Julia was laughing. Okay, so that's it. Anyone would like to comment on anything that has been said so far? Please. Oh, sorry. Gosh. Yeah.
I'd just like to say that all that was a load of hogwash. But beautiful anyway. Yeah. It's everything is happening within the context of the of that which is, isn't it? Yeah. All the ideas that arise about need or not needing, and all the answers, and all the myriad manifestation of mind, and all these investigations which are relative to a self-understanding, and all of this is simply the play of the totality of consciousness on the screen of awareness, and it means nothing.
It means nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah? That's it?
That's right.
Mm.
There's some.
I might ask a question
Oh,
just to
please.
get something. Yeah, we were talking about the two ends of the stick, and pleasure and pain, and suffering and joy. But I have a friend of mine, or someone that I know fairly recently, is going through a marriage breakup, I'd say, or the marriage is in difficulties with alcohol involved, and she's suffering a great deal. And I was sitting with another friend talking about it and going, what can she do? And saying, well, pointing to just that thing about understanding it from a point of view of acceptance, and just being with it and going through it, and not being trapped in the mind all the time, asking that what's wrong with right now without a thought too. And she's saying, oh, that's not good enough, she wants to find an answer. You can't just stop. I say stop thinking about it, and you say, well, how can you stop thinking about it? But it just points to that, to me, that you can only be with what is going on, and there is no answer in the mind really, but yet we keep looking for it and thinking that if we found the answer in the mind we could somehow stop the pain, or there's a position you can take that will help it. I've gone through difficult times too, and sometimes it seems like the pain is endless, and you want some way out, but and you think there is a way to find it in the mind. I wonder if anyone would like to comment on it.
Yeah, beautiful. Want to say something, Peter?
No.
No.
Oh, definitely could, but maybe Bob would like to
Please.
answer that one.
Do you want to say something to that, Bob?
Yeah. Yes, you can't, as you say, stop the thinking. But then again,
I'll take it down again. The speakers again.
right distance. You can't stop the thinking. Thinking will be there. But then, because who's it happening to? Who is the thinker? When you realise you can't stop the thinking, well, who is the thinker? Well, naturally, the thought will go, I am, it's me that is the thinker. And what's me or I am? Or can you say, find a me or an I am there? No, what is I am? Well, you investigate that and you see that I am is only the sense of presence being translated as the thought I am. So again, I am is a thought. Now if you're not realising, do you think you are a thought? So again, investigate, am I the thought? I am. And you realise, no, the thought is the thinker. I am. So the thinker is the thought. Without the thinker, where can the thought lodge? So the thought, I think, you form a subject. You take the thinker to be the thought, becomes the subject, the me. But you see, the thought is just a vibration, a movement of energy, which is happening naturally, spontaneously, and effortlessly, like the rest. Then what are you going to relate to then? Who's having these problems? It's only me that believed in me. I am is me. It's another word for me. And the thinker, the subject, can't be a thinker without thinking, and there can't be the thought without thinking. Subject-object a duality. Without relating to the subject or the object. What is it? It's just pure thinking, just the same as it's pure seeing, pure hearing, pure tasting, touching, smelling. Before you say, I see, I think, I taste, I touch, I smell. When is that pure thinking, which is no thing that you can grasp? Well, who's having the problem? You've got to go back again and say, well, naturally you'll dive back into it out of the habit. It's me. Well, look again. Look again. What is this me? And see it again and again and realise there is no such thing as me. Me is just a concept, an idea, a word we've learned that the energy of belief has gone on. Without that sense of presence, could you translate into that thought? We picked up the words with the thoughts along the way, and you recognise the thought's not the real. The word's not the real, it's not the thing.
I love the way, Cliff, you also, because the way you actually pointed out to her to reflect on life, and you reflect on your own life, and you say how you've been through rough patches in your life too, and life moves you, the energy takes you where you need to go. Obsessing about it is counterproductive because it only reinforces the habit of further obsessing about it. Like, the training makes master. If you train your mind in obsessing, in looking for some sort of a solution, of course, energetically, because the whole body is designed to survive, it has a strong survival instinct. The part of the computing capacity is designed to scan environments for better solutions. Part of it is already seeking for optimal solution, but overthinking is not one of those. And what you say, yes, just be with what is and see where the life will move you from there, because from silence you access the heart space, and from the heart the right action comes. Because in the head you're going to be scapegoat. Oh yes, everybody's psychopath, but I'm a scapegoat, I'm poor me. And it's not constructive. I love that analogy when Bob sometimes brings about life being like a river. It flows. When you look at you kind of step out of that little bubble of poor me right now, but just look at the bigger picture. Like we had a friend yesterday coming, her father has massive stroke and is in a palliative care. He's not going to make it, he's 88 and that's it. And just holding her hand, how she is being in the midst of that, with the whole family being divided and extremely under a huge stress, very similar situation. But she's so mature that she can actually just look at the bigger picture, like you related to your life, being through different flow, different ways that river takes you. And she says, I've been through the divorce, I've been through the accident, I've been through children moving out of house, I've been through never that big of a loss. Loss of parent is a huge loss, but she knows that this is, life has the natural way of resolving itself, and you are life. It's not that I am here and threatening life world out there. No, this is one organism, and it is in constant communication. So the resolution comes as soon as it already is actualizing itself as soon as the situation changes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good, you know, you can't stop, as you say, Bob, you can't stop the thoughts. And, you know, with someone that you know, haven't known all that long, I have a friend there that I've known for ages, and this other woman who's going through the problems, but you can't sort of take them on a journey into non-duality really when they, you know, have not seen any of this, but to realise that, you know, there is overthinking and, you know, looking at it from the point of view of just being with the feelings and the thoughts, and just watching it with awareness. Because I remember from my own experience that the thinking would be about me, as you say, Bob, you know, it's happening to me, poor me, this is going on, you know, what's going to happen to me, how will I deal with it next week or next month or next year if it's still happening, you know, and the mind makes it just snowball and snowball and the fire gets worse and worse. But just to see it with some, you know, I call it acceptance, even though there's no one doing the accepting, but just to be with the experience and watching it from awareness rather than from the self-centered point of view, I suppose. Yeah. Thanks.
Ross, did you want to add something? No? Oh. Peter?
Dean? Maybe. Okay. Like, maybe not.
Okay.
No, like I think like just Bob, as he was describing the I amness and a sense of presence, and the thought and the thinker as the same. Like, I mean, if that's seen, like, oh, everything changes. Like the topic of needs and wants. There's no such topic that could possibly even exist, or it can exist, but it's like this game. But even in, like, I have someone like with a sort of going through some forms of psychosis and things, and I can't teach them. I know I was a therapist once, so there's nothing I can say. It's just recognising what you're saying, and it doesn't even mean things are going to change or improve, or it doesn't mean anything. It just, but within here, there's like such resolution and love for actually like such a turbulent moment in someone's life. Like there's still just a total acceptance and joy almost, not wishing them in any way, but there's still absolute love and space. And within that, possibly there's some sort of healing that happens. Wouldn't have a clue. Wouldn't have a clue in the world. And it's way out of... There's nothing that this believed in so-called entity could possibly ever, like, it doesn't even play a role. Like, it's just life is doing everything. And there's no real doer involved. And there's no doer here. There's no doer there. They're not doing the problem either. So there's no problem. What are we trying to fix? Life's playing the game. It's orchestrating the whole play with drama and intrigue and beauty and peace and love and mung beans, you know, and everything in between. Yeah, the mung beans are the most important part. And that's all.
Nice, Dean. Yeah.
Beautiful. That's great.
I just want to tell a little story if I may. At the moment I have a lot of dyskinesia, and this wonderful expression of Parkinson's that Bob and I wonderfully shared, didn't we, Bob? And I had a moment some time ago when I was really hard up against this thing called Parkinson's, and I was in a condition where I just could not get comfortable at all, day or night. It was extremely distressing for me, and no matter what I did, I couldn't sit anywhere, I couldn't lie down. The only thing I could do was sort of reach up and kind of hold on to which something stretched my body a bit momentarily, and then this terrible sense of just being totally uncomfortable descended on me again. And I have no idea of understanding how this all is, where it came from, what it was really all about, but it was very instructive in as much that my son was there at the time, and he was watching this whole thing going on, and ultimately I realised that he was from what seemed to me to be a very selfish position. He said, I'm really sick of you. I think I'm going to just go and piss off, and leave you alone. I need to get on with my own life or something. And I felt like, really, for a moment, I felt totally like this position that I'm in. Right, this is the end for me somehow. The worst thing I could ever possibly endure. I felt I really deserve a bit of compassion, at least from my son, and he hasn't got any for me, and it was such a bizarre thing that I just cracked up laughing. It was just so an impossible situation that I just sprang out into something else, just entirely. It just became so humorous, that, things do change, even when you think that the whole thing is pressed so deeply and heavily upon you. Something will come along which just cracks the whole thing open. Yeah. And at that point, things did change for the better. It's a very strange and beautiful event, which is totally inclusive in the whole thing. Oh, sorry. Yeah, well, thank you very much. Anyone else got anything to say? Oh, correct.
Beautiful.
I better go for a walk. I'm going to try to get rid of it. Not rid, but I've got to do what it says. Did you?
I got a couple of comments from people who are with us online, so I'll just read them out. So Amarnath says, recognizing dream as dream liberates NM. We are never inside or outside the dream, but non-existence of dreamer forever. And thanks a million, Bob, boarding station, me or thinker never existed. We were boarding was dream, and the icons there. Impurity never existed except in our imagination. All words lost their meaning. That's also Amarnath. And Amarnath, just spontaneous thinking, let it be, there without thinker. Beautiful Peter, thanks a million for your sharing story. That's also Amarnath. So thank you, Amarnath. Thank you, everyone. Anyone would like to add something? Or? Oh, please, Zulma. Upsy.
I wasn't thinking in saying anything, but thank you so much, and tons of love.
Thank
Thanks.
And we have a comment from Tanya as well. She says the body doesn't need to die to experience heaven. Heaven is everywhere, no location. Thank you, Tanya. Yes, they say the sitting, being locked in the mind is hell. But find the silence, descend to the heart, and that's heaven. What Dean was saying, even the sadness, even a distress, even anger, there is certain sweetness about aliveness that is present there, about that presence in which this energy comes up. And the capacity to feel it, to feel everything fully, including the feeling of compassion or the feeling of sadness or self-pity, anything. If you don't label it, it's just a raw life. And yeah, you can be, one could say, you can find heaven in the eye of a cyclone, in that silence which is always and ever present right now. But the moment we go to the mind and we have the story, I'm a scapegoat, or I'm a victim, or I'm a perpetuator, or I'm a narcissist, or I'm whatever, they're all against me, the world is full of darkness, the world is full of, yeah, all those stories. Oh, like Cliff was saying, it's gonna get worse. Yeah, what if I can't cope? Yes, that's hell. That's hell. But that all comes, as Amarnath was pointing out, it all comes from thinking, from imagination. While it is also the way life expresses in this moment. And seeing it for what it is very liberating. Because I can see the thought of having a story about self-pity, poor me, whatever the story is. But the moment I see a story, there is that seeing is not from the character in the story. When I read the book, I'm not in the book. So when I'm seeing the character of myself or whoever there is as a character playing a role, or when I even see how other people put me in a role to play for them, like the role I was supposed to play to be an endless victim, the moment I refused to play it ended, it wasn't working anymore. You see how people put scripts, and this is all totally brilliantly orchestrated, automatic functioning in which everything updates everything, and there is no doer anywhere, and there is nobody who is guilty of anything. If you see the world in two colors, that's also not, nobody's at fault because of that. If you don't have the concept of non-duality, or you can't see the narrative, again, nobody's at fault in anything. It's really beautiful the way it dances its dance, completely connected with everything, completely responsive to everything, always in the way dictated by the principle of loving to be. So always taking the best course of action and the best decision that is available within that setting. The setting in here and the setting out there, they all one. Nobody is doing anything wrong because the whole machinery is designed to survive and exist. So for that loving to be, everyone is doing their best, including victims, psychopaths, everyone. Please.
Sorry. it's just that like just continuing like with what you're saying, like just as with an example, like death. Death is the whole meaning of the dream, in a sense. Like it's the linchpin, I guess. It's and socially and you know the consensual view is that it's bad, that it's terrible.
Yes.
And this is just an example. But I found myself at a funeral recently, and the death of passing away of my best friend, and I can't explain the loving to be expressing itself at that time, absolute magnificence, like absolute love for the funeral, for everyone's mourning. It doesn't sound logical or intuitive. It doesn't even make any sense. But but it's just an example of when the love to be is so, it's so overwhelmingly like oh, it's like just a blessing to be part of a funeral. Like it can be the most magnificent, and everyone's like crying around you, and you're not happy jumping in joy. There's somehow the movement consoles, just loves everything, and it's just an example, just to continue, just emphasise what you're talking about, and how magnificent the play is, and how it orchestrates the machinery to do that in this way anyway for this.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Just what Dean seems to be expressing over and over again is just this compassion, which is just another word for life.
Yes.
It's the compassion, the love. Yeah.
Can I say something?
Please.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, all of your contributions this morning have been very, very special.
What's the cat? Yeah, don't sit on the cat.
That would be a nice, you wouldn't. Oh, I don't want to sit on here.
You seem to have love and compassion even for the cats.
Yes, what I was going to say was that this is in no way a recipe for the world's problems. We may come here, isn't that right, Bob? We may come here under false pretenses, looking for a better self, a solution to this, that, and the other. I'm in so much pain, I need something, so I'm going to come down here and see whether somebody here's got a better idea than the one I had before. But this is not about that in the end. It's all, as Dean really expressed it very well there. I think we all got it, in as much that one simply, one simply is in a different realm of really what it is non-conceptual awareness, isn't it? This totally non-conceptual, no thing going on here, right? In truth, when one does the investigation and realises the total emptiness of this self, which is trying to solve problems all the time, what happens is that you simply enter a very it's a total non-conceptual awareness, and it is what Buddha mind is, and everything is coming home to that spontaneously. Your only duty, if there is one, is to simply enjoy it, really. And all else will be taken care of perfectly in that untrammeled condition that you find yourself in.
Yeah, it's been interesting discussion, and I like what you said, Dean, about death. That everyone says it's a bad thing. Okay, that's the opinion, and it's so funny. You think about death. As you get older, you think, "Oh, what's dying going to be like?" And then the other day, I got told I should check out this little spot I've got on my head, and I went to the doctor, and they said, "Oh, it's not." It doesn't look too serious, but keep an eye on it. If it grows, you might have to have it cut out or something. But I was thinking, oh God, if I've got a melanoma and it spreads and I'll die probably, and I've got to get all this organised, and it'll be dreadful. And I think the mind is taking off on about death, and then you think, well, actually, what's so bad about death? And you don't know. It's just beingness in a different way or whatever. Then you let go of the story, and then you think, oh, I do that every night when I go to sleep. You just let go of this story and you're into some other story, and then you wake up and the same old so-called problems come up or joys come up or whatever, and you resume the thing. And but it really is you know, it's all a concept of death, you know, like, and everyone believes it, and you're at funerals and people have different points of view about it and think it's terrible things happen to this person, that they've died. But is it so terrible? Everybody does it, and it's just a change. And I often think that really there is no separation in death. I feel as if that energy that was in that so-called person that's died is still there in and around you. I just think of my parents that are both dead. They're there in my mind as soon as I think of them. They could be living in the house next door for all I know. You know, it's in my mind the people that I know that I've loved and have died are there just as vividly as if they're alive. So apart from not being able to find them physically today, there is no real change in death. And you know, I don't know, those are all just concepts too, but it's not what you think of these things. And you know, all that going through that pain with your son too, Peter, you know, it came and it went and it changed, and maybe there's even a deeper appreciation of each other that came out of that. Who knows about these things that we think are bad? You know, the painful situation I went through, a separation too, and with my wife, and it seemed like you know, an ongoing drama for quite a while. It was quite painful, but out of that's come a whole lot of new good stuff that couldn't have happened in the way it was before. So it's not what we think it is.
Yeah.
Well, the best thing about death is when I die.
Yeah, that's right.
Because the
It's the only death.
when
Exactly.
when me, which is the centre of the universe, disappears for a while, it's a great relief, and that's the final death of me. Is something to be really celebrated.
Die before you die.
Yeah.
Can I say
Ego.
Me goes when I go.
Yeah,
No,
I go before ego. Yeah.
Yeah, Peter
Someone-
wants to-
You can say.
Yeah, it's. I find it very interesting that if I just sit and just chill out from it, let's just let everything come and go, and then realise that just in a direct experience, as a direct experience, just investigating deeply in myself, I can see that I am life. You know, it's absolutely perfectly obvious, isn't it? Yeah. I am life now, present, aware. And they're all the one thing, aren't they? Yeah. Sat, chit, and under. And I sat, I had a shit, and I loved it. It's all right. I'm fine. I just wanted.
No, I was just
Oh yeah, I haven't finished yet. Just let me conclude this. Yeah, I can. I can experience life directly as a direct experience, but I cannot experience death in the same way. Death is only a series of ideas, isn't it, that come and go. So I think that I find it very interesting. I trust things that I directly know as direct knowledge, which is only that anyway. The only thing I know directly is that I'm aware, I'm here, I'm now, I'm life, and everything else is just a series of swirls of, lovely concepts that come and go.
St.
Thank you.
Francis says that by dying that I'm restored to everlasting life. By letting go of the self or the ego, I'm suddenly in everlasting life. I'm in the now. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
You can't see a better example of expression of that life as in Peter. Look at the amount of energy that's going just because a little fuse snaps somewhere in the body and it's not going through completely, you know. But the energy of life is amazing.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. Yeah. Likewise, everyone here. And you know, what is it that makes us one? Yeah, that's a very good question, Dave. What is it that makes us one? From that, well, yeah. You know, life. There is not different kinds of life, is there? Life is just total, is it not? When you have a look and you feel I am life. You're not a separate kind of life, are you? You are the life.
There's nothing else but life.
Exactly. And is it not true that we recognise the same life in Dean, in Bob and Kat and this cat here?
Rolling the earth around the sun.
Exactly.
Causing the planets to form, so causing the tides to come in and out. It's breathing us, beating our hearts, growing our hair and our fingernails. All that life. So what must you be? The pattern, shape and form, the expressions, or the life itself?
Now I have. Oh yeah, go on.
That's why Christ could say, I am the life, I am the truth, I am the way.
So we have JP is saying, thank you, Peter. Without being the dreamer, it is all love and beauty. And Amarnath says, beautiful, Tanya, hell, meaning me, lost its meaning. And a lot of icons. And British Julia says, life expresses through this body-mind nothing to resist, as only the false self thinks. Things need to be different. Beautiful. No more claims, doership, says Amarnath. And he also says, death is life, life is death. Both lost their meaning. And the icons, tons of icons. And is word a thing? He's quoting Bob. Nisargadatta's Guru Siddharameshwar Maharaj laughingly clapped and welcomed his death in front of all. And Amarnath says again, beautiful Peter, no way recipe, and tons of smiles and icons. And Tanya says, sending love to Peter, hope some relief in symptoms of Parkinson's come soon. And Tanya also says, much gratitude to the clear expression flowing through Peter. And only the body dies, no one dies. Without the belief in a me, what is there to fear? Beautiful. And Ram says, answering to Tanya, that only the body dies, no doubt in it. Yes, the I, the false entity, doesn't have to die because it has never been real. It's just imagined. So it's not really a death of the self or the I or a separate me. It's rather seeing through, just like Santa Claus doesn't die when we recognize it is just a dress-up story. Nobody gets killed. There is no blood. Amarnath, there were no people to die. There was no life to die. Beautiful. There is no I to die. And Ram says, love you all. Amarnath, beautiful Peter, God is dead. Everything is God. All words and thoughts are illusions only. And again, tons of icons and images. And Amarnath answering to Ram, to love you all with more hearts and flowers and things. And great, you are love. There are no others, but there is only ocean of love everywhere. Beautiful. And Primali says thank you. So
I love that Santa Claus doesn't die.
You want to go on that or not?
No, it's all right.
Okay. So.
Right.
I love you. Everybody loves you. You want to say something? Cliff says he loves that Santa Claus doesn't die. Don't you love that the I doesn't have to die? It just needs to be recognized as just a story, just a narrative, just a commentary. And how could you possibly be your commentary? I mean, if that was you, why would you even need to communicate with yourself? You already know what you know. So it's obviously the voice, the sound of the voice is not an entity. And if it was an entity, who is that entity talking to? Who is the one who listens? That makes no sense. So obviously the 1, 2 selves, 3 selves, any self is imagined, because the moment the imagination stops, the self stops. So the moment you stop thinking about Santa Claus, there is no Santa Claus. Just like you were pointing, Cliff, the people who passed away. And I had my dearest friend passed away also. She's there whenever I have the thought. The memory comes up and is vivid and is alive and is present and is now. And even if she didn't pass away, she would be on the other side of the world, present as strongly as a thought, yet just as present. And the same with the Santa Claus and the thought and the me. So it is really only the matter of recognition. Nothing has to be fixed, changed.
And Santa Claus doesn't die because he was never really there, right?
Never
he was
really there.
born.
That's right. Yeah, you want to repeat it so others can hear?
Yeah, sure. Santa Claus doesn't die because he was never really born. He's not. He's only there when you think about him.
Yes.
Like all of us.
Like all of us, yes.
Can I say something? Yeah. When I was listening to you talk, Bob, that you made it very clear to me, or I heard it very clearly anyway, that the light or reality takes care of itself once we do the investigation of the false. And I think that's a very wonderful thing. You know, we don't need to understand, or which is impossible to do anyway, to investigate what the light is or what the truth is. It just simply reveals itself subtly and beautifully once we have seen through the false, right? And in that, we can trust entirely, or that is, in fact, already the experience of total trust in everything. That, yeah, it's kind of like we sit on the edge of a black hole and we watch time and space warp. We just live in the expectation, because you see only light. Everything shows up as light. You see only God, you see only the truth, you see only that, because you've simply investigated sincerely enough, and you really genuinely see in your singular direct experience that the impossibility of this construction that we call serial problems is just simply not true. The upshot of all that is simply that there is light all around, there is the truth, there is that, and everything then for a moment in this so-called world shows up as that, as one. And all problems dissolve in this incredible joy. Yeah, that's what...
That is
yeah,
beautiful.
I don't know how else to put it.
No, that's beautifully said. That's exactly it. If you see the evil, the devils, the hungry ghost or anything, just clean the lens of projector. If you don't see the love and light and beauty and you're not amazed by that, just look at the projector. There's no evil out there. There is just the clouded projector. Anyway, here we have a couple of other words. Tanya says, exactly, Kat, there never was a me laughing out loud. Thank you all so much for the beautiful meeting today. Love you all. Have a lovely lunch. And Amana says, thank you, love you all. And Vivek says, great, Peter, I am truth, I am life. And British Julia says, the commentary is life too. Love all of it. Absolutely. Everything is life. There is nothing that's not it. Yes, and I think that's a nice note to...
Yeah, life lives on life.
Yeah.
out of life more life comes.
And even the negative expressions or projections are life too. Absolutely. There's nothing that's not it. Seeing the darkness is alive too. Everything is life. It's just that investigation makes it clear that those dark projections that cause pain, suffering, and turmoil, and that create the world of division and wars and hatred and fear are not necessary. That's it. It doesn't have to be this way. That's why we are meeting here, to just point at it. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.